So, how much have you looked through any of the material for this week?
Yes, I have, and I have my the assignment pretty much done. I've just got to do a proofread now. I wrote it all today.
Okay. So, what we're really getting at with this week's assignment is the writing component of public relations, and so what you're doing is you're communicating. Let me come back for a moment and just do a real quick sketch. Remember from the video, it's my freehand drawing. So PR operates at boundaries.
I can't see your drawing if you're supposed to be sharing it.
Ah, good. Give me a second. There you go. You got it now?
Nope, still don't see it. Oh, there it goes.
Oh, here comes Jaleesa. So, public relations is a boundary function. It functions at the outer boundary of the organization, and it functions at the outer boundary of the executive team. And so if this is production, this is sales and marketing, where we're communicating with everybody in the organization within production if we're in that quadrant, or sales and marketing if we're in the other quadrant. But when we go to the outer boundary, then we're talking to the audiences. So who are the audiences related to sales and marketing? Who are the audiences related to production? The lower left quadrant is normally considered maintenance, which are all your staff positions. And then lower right is planning. So sometimes we talk to all when we talk with regard to the organization as a whole, but a lot of times our messages are focused within those specific quadrants and those audiences. And who these people are, they are the value chain that make up everything related to sales and marketing, the value chain of everybody related to production, the value chain of everybody that could possibly be related to maintenance, to staffing. So what ends up happening is when we talk about a press release, these are the audiences that we want to talk to that are out here. And the press release, again, can either be focused on a specific quadrant or it can be focused on the entire organization. But there's a couple things that we want to do. And one of my favorite examples when you talk about communicating, and it's a very narrow slice, but I think it makes sense, is the difference between promotion and a press release newsworthy event. So in terms of promotion, a good example would be, hey, Jaleesa, if you have an opportunity, you can turn your camera on if you like. And that way it's kind of like we're all in a classroom together. And I talked to Jaleesa about this afternoon. So a new product. many times a new product, and when we talk about it, it's just we're promoting the new product. But think about when Apple announces a new product like the Apple iPhone 10. All of a sudden, that's a newsworthy event. And the question is, my new widget that I'm talking about over here, maybe it's a new toaster, or I don't know, maybe it's a new model car or something, versus the iPhone discussion. What's the difference? Well, there's a couple things that we look at to determine whether or not we're dealing with a newsworthy event or not. And typically there's 5 things that we talk about. One is timeliness. Is it time sensitive? The significance. By the way, my boards in the classroom look just like this. My printing is horrible. We talk about proximity, both temporal and geographic. The prominence and last, the human interest. And in reality, although we spell each of these out, you almost have to take all 5 in total in order to be able to determine whether you're dealing with a newsworthy event. So as you craft your craft your newsworthy message, your event, you want to be considering all these items. And then the format that's presented for you is really a standard format. Now, Wesley, you said you're doing PR right now, right?
Yes, I work for the Air Force in the public affairs office.
Do you have a hand in crafting press releases?
Not in my current position, but I've done some in the past.
Okay. So the format that we've presented for you is a pretty standard format. PR Newswire and a number of different news services. This is the standard that they look at. Realize that what you're doing with the press release and its distribution through the wire services, you're getting journalists' attention. You want to get them to look at it. And they're scanning that for very specific information. So sometimes in life we talk about being creative and being original. This is not one of those in terms of the format that you want to mess with, because if they look at it and they don't immediately see what the signals to say this is a legitimate press release, it's just going to go in the pile. And the reason being, the number of press releases that are generated and are distributed is an incredible amount. But if you're doing it correctly, you're getting a ton of benefit from doing the press release. Now, the other thing to think about is that the press release really becomes, in the modern sense, it's a mini press kit. It's a mobile press kit. You're giving a reporter, a journalist, everything that they need in order to do a story, whether that story is in print, broadcast, or new media. So I may have an MP4 attached to the file. I may have a picture attached to the file. And if I do, and the reporter's doing a story, they've got everything they need. They may look at it and decide, whoa, this is a good story and I need to do more research and I need more resources, and so they may build upon that. which is great. Then you've really done your job well. But go ahead.
I had a question on that actually, and it has to do with this week's assignment. Part of the rubric is to include an image or something along those lines with the press release that we're crafting. Do you want just an image included in the Word doc, or do you want us to actually send a JPEG along with the press release in the classroom?
I would put it in the press release so that the visual is there for whoever is looking. The same if you embed a file or you have a, well, actually, I'll tell you what I've done when I've sent along video, but the way that I've done it, I've taken a still shot from the video, and then down in the notes and the additional information, I've put the link to where the MP4 file is located.
Right.
So
I've seen it done a couple of different ways. The image that we're including in the press release, I've seen it included both before and after the hashtag symbols there at the bottom that mark the end of the release. Is it proper to put them before it, or is it included afterwards as just additional comments?
I would put it before, and that's actually the recommendation from PR Newswire, I believe. I may have my source wrong on that, but and again, the reason being is I may not get to the hashtags.
Onika's question was going to be my next one: is do you need captions with the photos or not?
No, you do not need captions. You can go ahead and now you may want to, okay. So tell me how you format the 3 paragraphs.
Well, so the first one is your who, what, when, where, why, all the pertinent information to get the attention. The second one is supporting information. The third one is your quote. And then the last, if you add a fourth one, it's just other additional supporting information that may be beneficial.
I would try and stay to 3. And I would, my personal preference is I like to put the quote second because, again, I'm looking, I want to draw them in. And the quote is the personal component. It's the subject matter expert. That's the human interest component.
That's what I'm used to doing as well. But the template has it as the third, and so if I was just following the template, it puts it as the third one. But I normally like to put it up more towards the top myself because that's what people are going to relate to. I
need to go back and look at that because I believe the example has it second. I'll go back and take a look.
Unless I'm remembering it wrong. But yeah, Onika says second is details.
Okay. You can do it either way. That's fine. That's my preference is to put the quote second. Again, just because that's the human interest component. What always sells is human interest. Now, I'll tell you, I have a client, and here's where theory meets the road. And I teach an undergrad course in different degree program, and the course I teach is right at the point where they begin to switch from theory to application. And for them, it's very, very difficult because they've been conditioned. Everything is black and white. And the reality is, life is gray. And what we have to do is understand how to manage the gray. I have a client who I'll write a beautiful 1-page press release, send it to him, and it comes back almost 3 pages. And
I had a company I would do that. I have a company, a nonprofit, or they're applying for their nonprofit that I write occasional releases for, and I send it to them, and they'll come back with all this additional stuff, and I'm like, no, you don't need all this in there for the purpose of the release.
Jaleesa, I'm not. I was just going to answer that specifically, and I'm not. 300 to 500 words. I'll tell you why. Because again, I think it depends on the story, on the content. Smaller is better, but I have with my client, I have to. I mean, it's like trying to squeeze a rock for water to get it close to 500. I think the last one I did might have been closer to 7, and it's just a struggle. But with that, so after he sends me back the 3 pages, I cut it again, and I send it back to him, and he then cuts mine again, and I get it, and I look at it, and I add a few things in, and then I don't send it to him. Or I'd rather I take a few more things out and reformat it, make sure I get the essence of what he's saying, but I get it as tight as I can, and then I don't send him the 3rd one. And he's never called me on it, so and we've always run successful campaigns, so still follows template, but involves 3 main people, so my 4 turn to 6 paragraphs to include quotes. I would be careful with that, because now you've got too many different stories and too much focus. You're splitting the focus of where you want to go. Think about whose story it really is. Think about who the audience is, and choose. I would suggest either choosing whose story it is, or the audience. The release before the last one I did was a collaboration effort, and we had two main stories we needed to tell. We were collaborating with New York Times bestseller Michael Connolly, and so we had to include in the boilerplate Michael Connolly's information, but I didn't include a quote from Michael. The story was Jim's to tell, and so we only told Jim's story. Now we've done we've done musical collaborations where we've had Grammy award-winning artists contribute on the focus single, and Gerald Albright, for example, and Gerald had something he wanted to say about the single, and so I'd have a quote from both Jim and Gerald. And normally, what I do with my quotes, I normally try to bookend that second paragraph. I start with a quote, and I like to end with a quote. If I got 2 different people, they're still telling the same story, I'll use one at the beginning and one at the end. So that's how I would approach that. So that you've got the, but just be careful. 4 sounds kind of scary. Okay. Have you ever read anything by Gar Reynolds?
No, I haven't.
Gar has absolutely nothing to do with public relations. Gar is a communicator, though, and his specialty is presentations. He wrote the book Presentation Zen, and Gar is a very, very big proponent of Far East mysticism and obviously Zen philosophy, which is minimalist. And everything he teaches in Presentation Zen is get rid of stuff. I'm still trying to get rid of stuff in my garage. I'm not very good at this. So,
Onika, I was going to mention, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Onika, when you have projects like that, or you're doing a release like that where all three people are on the same project, this is something we do often with the Air Force because it's often teams that are doing projects, not individuals. It's better just to find one person that can be the spokesperson for the team, and have the quote be like a general voice that is speaking for the entire team. You know, saying we really enjoyed this, or this is what we did that, so that you can still get that one paragraph, that one quote, without making your press release 2 pages long, trying to get everybody's voice in there. And then at the end of it, you could say, you know, maybe something along the lines of whoever your person is, plus additional team members are available for interview, or something like that, if you're going to do a press conference or an event where you're inviting media out to your showcase, if you're going to show off a product, or if it's for a play or something like that, so that the media knows that they'll have the opportunity to interview other people.
Excellent contribution, Wesley. The next thing I want to talk about with regard to the press release is the concept that it's not just a press release, it's a newsworthy event, so it's a block of content. And the reason for that is that you want to take this content, you want to take this event, and down the road, you want to use it in a number of different ways. You want to slice this in terms of social media. How many different Facebook posts can I get out of this? How many Instagram posts can I get out of this? How many tweets can I get out of this? Does this offer a LinkedIn news story? Am I going to use it for a blog story? And remember that there's a difference in terms of your writing. When you write the press release, we're writing a very specific format. When you're writing a blog story, now you're writing a story. You're still going to cover the 6 big questions, but how you do it, you're going to put a whole lot more oomph into the human interest and the significance components. The same as you take this and slice it, it's just not a matter of saying, here's the press release, and put a link to the press release in a Facebook post. This is where you take a look at all the content that you've created with the press release and how many different headlines can you create. Which, by the way, let me circle back to the press release for a moment. The amount of time that you put into creating your headline is critical, because it's the headline that first catches somebody's attention. If you don't catch them with the headline, you're not going to catch them with the picture, with the paragraphs, or anything else. The headline, you have to put time in the headline. And so what you want to do is to work on how can you develop ideas by yourself? How do you brainstorm with yourself?
That's one of my favorite things to do. Quick side story if you're interested on that.
Sure.
So I was working a press release, an article for a base in Virginia that has a cemetery on it, and the cemetery happens to be right alongside of a golf course. Well, one of the tombstones comes right up to a tee box, and so we were writing the story on the golf course, trying to promote it and get people to come out. And so I suggested the headline that people are dying to tee off, and that got a lot of laughs, and didn't end up using it, but stuff like that is fun to try and come up with.
Well, I'll what's interesting too, I'll tell you, last night I was in a production meeting. my content site, outcome.digital, we're in the process of very slowly going live and moving from beta to full-on production. And we've got a fair amount of podcasts already in the hopper, and we've got a lot of we're getting a lot of traffic on the iTunes site and the SoundCloud site, and we're now in the process where we want to start to build the social media community. We're starting with Facebook, and one of my partners was like, "Oh, I got this brand new tool. It's really neat. Didn't cost me a lot. It's a headline generator." And he goes, "Based on using the headline generator, I can tell you that we've not done a real good job." And he gave me an example. He said, we should be talking about these 3 points are going to do this for you, or these, and basically the headline generator was about 6 or 7 different tools that were very formulaic, that pretty much all came back to the same type of headline, which is a list type format. And let's see here. Okay, so this is, by the way, if you've never seen this site, Reagan's PR Daily is a great website for articles on PR. But as you're looking at this, and I haven't been here today yet, so let's just take a look. 30 jobs in the PR and marketing world, 5 ways social media, 5 tips for creating a stellar sales page, 6 crucial actions to take before releasing content, 7 crucial PR metrics to gauge, and that's just page 1. So about half of them were list, which is really no creativity. But Wesley, I love the golf course story. You should have gone with it. I know it was a little cutting edge, but
it's not the type of headline that the Air Force tends to use.
I know, but it would have been very fun.
Especially since I had a great image of the tombstone right next to the tee box, so it would have been perfect. But
but the idea is to brainstorm. Just let your inhibitions go and start the list. And try to get the 5. If you can get the 5, see if you can get the 10, and then pick the best. If you can't get the, it's a struggle to get the, if it's a struggle to get to 5, take a break, come back, and go at it until you get to 5, and then see what you got out of it. The trick is not to censor yourself. And you want to tell a story with the headline. You want it to be creative, and think of it this way: that the headline is what people are going to read. It's what is going to cause them to focus in on your press release. Okay. So coming back the other way, as you look at you're all finished. You got your press release with the great headline. Then take a look at those other headlines that you develop and see if they can work for different pieces of content that you might incorporate either into a Twitter post or a Facebook post. And then you've got maybe an image, maybe you've got a video. If you got a video, you got a whole lot of images you can choose from. But if you got you got the one image, what other images can you then create in order to start to compound on a Instagram campaign, the idea is that you want to get as much mileage out of your press release as possible. That's the cornerstone of your campaign. But the way that you're going to pump it and continue to put fresh blood into it is to be taking bits and pieces of it and using in all different areas of media. And with each of those, obviously, have a tie to the link taking you back to your press release, which, by the way, where are you storing your press release? Any takers? It's going to be in the press room or the newsroom on your website. If you don't have one, you need to have one. It's where you will put your press releases. It's where you'll put financial releases. Anything that's an official statement from the company goes into the press room or the newsroom. And if you develop a media kit, it is also where you keep your media kit. Now, again, this week we're focused on the press release. Week 4 in your discussion, I have you actually create some of these other writing outputs, but understand that what we're really getting to in week 2 is that public relations is about writing content and writing it in a number of different ways. Wesley, in your job with the Air Force in PR, have you ever overseen the creation of a video?
Yes, I've actually created a couple.
Which again is another output of what we're doing with regard to the nugget of newsworthy content. Perhaps the best way to do that is in the form of a video. Now, we get into a really interesting line, and not for me to decide where the line actually is, but brand story and PR oftentimes walk on that line together. So sometimes we're putting together a brand story. Sometimes it's the PR component happens to be a brand story. Did in your brand class did you do any videos? No. Oh, and I got to apologize. I have not been able to do as much writing into this class because of the holiday, and also we have been inundated with major revisions going on behind the scenes at Full Sail. Actually, not revisions, but just a whole lot of administrative tasks that everybody has on their plate right at the moment, and including finishing up grading from last month. I've got a few maintenance things that I'm going to watch at, Jaleesa. There's
a link to there's a link to an article and video that I did.
Cool. Wesley, I saw that pop up, and I saw Jaleesa's name on top. I just thought it was Jaleesa. Now that you say it, I see Wesley right there.
It's a package, full package, photo gallery, graphic layout, article, and video.
Excellent. Excellent. So what... trying to think where the heck... Oh, where I was going was I've got some more things that I want to share with you this week that I'll get out in a couple of messages. I'll give you a couple of brand videos that were PR/brand that we did last year for under contract to Tippin Gardner and a big philanthropic event that was held in New York City. And then the other thing I've got for you, which actually goes back to the week 1 conversation with regard to public relations and ethics, and that's to share with you the story of Edward Bernays, who is looked at as the modern father of public relations. We say modern Bernays was a member of Woodrow Wilson's administration in the teens and started to rise to prominence in the early 20s, I guess it was. And actually, he lived a very long time. He lived almost 100 years. He died in I think it was 1995. And Bernays had the other interesting quirk of history to be a double nephew of Sigmund Freud. And I'm not going to try to explain what double nephew means other than his father was related to Sigmund and his mother was related to Sigmund. So he was a double nephew. And that's really weird. Anyway, I want to share that story with you. And then that brings us to the last item on the agenda for tonight, which is talk about measurement. Because that's your discussion this week, correct? So,
yes, part of the discussion.
So basically know that in public relations, there's a raging battle going on. And the battle is between the academic elite that want to talk about the Barcelona protocols and the 7 items that make up the Barcelona protocols, and then the down and dirty, and I say that tongue in cheek, the actual practitioners that are working with a client that are using AVEs, which is add value equivalent or equivalency, and you know, from my vantage point, the world is big enough that both ideas can work and need to work depending on the scenario. What does add value equivalency say? It says, basically it's P.T. Barnum. Any press is good press. So it's saying that if we get a mention in the press, what I need to do is I need to look at that, how much space that mention is taking up, how much would I pay for that space, and the public relations function has now achieved that value in terms of an ad. If we were to buy an ad, that's the value that we would be adding for the amount of space that article about us is taking up. Because remember, what we do is we influence the media. And as our primary target, but in reality and then our secondary target obviously is our target audience for our brand, good, or service. But we're hoping to influence the influencers, and so our primary target is the media. So if we get a quarter page or half page story about us, wow, that's a lot of advertising that we just bought. The Barcelona folks say, yeah, but that could be bad press. There's no measurement of what that really is doing for your brand. And so the Barcelona protocols actually takes a look at not just activity. In other words, what are we doing? How many press releases are we turning out? How many of this are we doing? How many mentions are we getting? How many Facebook posts are we putting out? They're saying, what is the outcome of all that? How have we moved the needle in terms of the brand? And so for them, what they're really focused on is outcomes. That's the Barcelona principles in a nutshell. Obviously, you should read through them and be much more familiar. What you want to think about are 2 things: activities and outcomes. What are the activities that you should be doing? And this goes in relation to your IMP in particular. Because you should have a component of your IMP that focuses on public relations. In the undergrad internet marketing program, we don't teach a public relations course, but we do teach a social media optimization course, and we do teach a display advertising course. We used to. We've kind of moved things around a little bit now. The display advertising course is all about purchasing ads, whether it's the Google Ad Network, the Bing Ad Network, Facebook Network, LinkedIn Network. Whereas social media optimization is saying, how are we building our brand through social media? It's public relations, because it's not paid. Which I don't think we've talked the concept, and I want to make sure I throw that in here. That public relations, when we say that it's earned media, what we're doing is we're earning the trust of media that we have a newsworthy story to convey, and they're going to cover it, versus paid media. So in social media, in Facebook, for example, we can influence people to tell our story, to share our posts, to write posts themselves about us, or we can go out and buy ads, Facebook ads. The ads are paid media, but everything else we do is earned media. There's probably a lot more I could go into, but I want to be cognizant of time. So and by the way, what we do with social media is we're looking for, and really it's the same concept with broadcast or print media through journalists. We're looking for social proof that what we have is newsworthy, and that our brand is valid and legitimate. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns?
Nothing here.
Well, if you're coolio, I'm certainly coolio. All right, folks. Well, you have a great night.